On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. When we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. When we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. When the truth gets revealed, all they probably do is squeal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. On the real, on the real. When I uplift the fallen humans from the ashes, the phoenix will rise and live on after it clashes. Fezzes and head wraps, costume ball sashes. Atlantis and Pangea was us ruling the atlas. The mundane, some god, a numb brain. Drew died is reincarnate, some self-proclaimed. Taking the lessons from Quran questions. Bible as my rolling pad, holy book circle 7. Forerunner Marcus Garvey coming in the whirlwind. Moorish Boba Muftis in the black turban. Pioneer exposed as the triple crown glows. Every negus has the negus as its throne. The temple as the body, truth as my shoddy. With no bulge, I'm still armed without the robbery. Master arts martial, and they marshal the law. Peace offers abuse authority, fracture your jaw. Clapping at y'all at bachelor parties. Not knowing whether it's controlled by HAARP. Stopping the tapping of UH frequency. Sent to the higher self from Sirius B, or maybe Sirius A. The reverse is serious internet radio play. Like square shreddies are now dominant new. Misleading, they charge a bill 50 for a shoe. It takes $5 to make. They load trucks with bins. Same goes for cars, construction Tims. So clean, no scuffs. Revolution chumps, reclining in the armchair, speechless like mumps. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. When we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal. Change is coming. I'm watching hybrids running for shade, cause Earth's hot, not like a preheat oven. Raid the stores for UV protection. If AIDS can go through the condoms, who you protecting? Neglecting the truth and lie accepting. Not impropriate person, reparations expecting. Planes going down but you're not ejecting. Too busy flossing with the spinning rims and white feet is flexing. Fronts are fake elements, that's not real gold. Running from police with guns is not too bold, cause you got a gun but won't shoot back, son, or shoot first and earn your way off earth. Suicide is a sin and sin is ignorance. Not thinking critical makes you ignorant. Missing the message, ego filling your brain with nonsensical thoughts just to drive you insane. On the real, all these 30 Moors know the deal. On the real, all these 30 Moors know the deal. On the real, all these 30 Moors know the deal. When we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal. Our leaders labeled black, they were assigned to us. As ancients, we flew, we didn't have to ride the bus or drink at their fountain. We didn't even need our own. The gun is a penis and every man is holding a chrome. Thinking it tough, but when you shoot, you bust. Like vixens holding you in with the camel hoof clutch. Smoking a Dutch, but taught much against the master. Sellouts would pay karmic debt in the life after. Don't believe me, seek the truth. I hear Hail Hitler when I play back these hip-hop loops. That rap hip-hop, Nas said it's dead. Same gun he raps about, shot Jay in the head. Cripple a team. These ball players, they cripple a dream. Counting the asses that they slap but won't get a bad rap. And rap sheets are written by them. It's police, not following Moors, but niggas booming in their jeeps. Europeans on the bus, they acting like niggas. Straight off the plantation, looking like J Hill figure. From the foreigner, you'll never get compensated. Disarm a youth man saying he's strapped, you been miseducated. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. When we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. When we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. When the truth gets revealed, all they probably do is squeal. On the real, all these dirty Moors know the deal. On the real, on the real.
You know, because it's not necessarily for him to have a response or say something. Why? You know what I mean? Like, why? For what? But, you know, there are people who are gonna stand up to the bullies. Not everybody's gonna give the bully a pass.
Right. And allow me to say this. I wanna address that point specifically. things that I'm finding out is that a lot of people who are making comments on the social media is like they're like 4-year-olds mentally. And so, for an adult, here's my analogy to the Taj situation, Taj Tariq Bey, the Honorable Taj Tariq Bey. For example, you're raising a child, and that child, let's say, happens to be 4 years of age. Some stupid shit coming out of his or her mouth.
You broke up right there after you said coming out of his or her mouth.
When you have like a 4-year-old, that phone. Seriously, he's not fully conscious. He or she's not fully conscious. They're in a very early stage of their development. They haven't even hit 7 years of age yet. Okay, so they're still in that early stage, and so to relate that to Taj Tariq Bey, I'm no spokesman for the Honorable Taj Tariq Bey, but I can say this, why does he need to pay attention to the retards out there on YouTube or Facebook talking about stuff that they are letting the world know that they don't have the basic fundamentals of grammar down, so how are you going to, start talking about this scholarly individual, all right, who always displays that in his speech when, he speaks publicly. He's not coming across as some axe murderer, that's constantly yelling at you, somebody, one of the telltale signs of individuals who have some sort of psychological problem, where they're so stressed out that they exhibit that in their speech. And so there are lots of times when you see individuals who, speak calmly, and they may, be that axe murderer, but there are a lot of times when you see just far too many times where you see people who are relegated to certain types of environments that they speak very loudly and always are, just like, it's like they're on drugs or something. And so, what I'm trying to say here is that you have to look at what has been written and what has been done. Don't let the charm affect you either way. Okay? And just be able, just put yourself in a position to where you can view the world by judging information and determining whether that information is knowledge or whether it's just information.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, because even when you were talking about, him speak, as like what you said, like speaking scholarly. You think it's a like what level of slander you think it is from with your mindset, like art of war mindset, right?
Okay.
How much of a disservice is people like trying to make a mockery of his scholarship when they're supposed to be in the same place where he is because they wear fezzes or they have a place called Morris Science Temple or whatever?
Well, I take a generally, I have with that in mind, with those components that you mentioned in mind, that takes me to another place. So what I would say is then you have to expect it, number one, that type of activity to rise, because it's not in the interest of the so-called establishment to have individuals like him having a large platform. right? And I think that, so you would expect it, but the disservice is seeing that you are the children and grandchildren post FBI infiltration of the Morrison Temple of America and any other so-called black organization, which happened in the 50s. From day one, from the 20s, mid to late 20s, that we know of from some of the documents that Prophet Mobile Ali made mention of in the Caribbean files, Caribbean files, and so on. So, but that's a whole. I don't want to jump tracks. I want to stay on track here, but so like you got to look at this thing, based on what's available. Again, like what documents do you have? So there are obviously going to be some individuals who are going to fit into the category and potential category of COINTELPRO agents, because then when you look at what they actually do, which is part of COINTELPRO, is to cause confusion. It doesn't matter if it derails the movement or not. At a minimum, what they're trying to do is cause confusion. All right? And so if they get a face like yours, like another Moore, that's the primary goal, is to get an individual who looks like a Moore, acts, on social media, wears certain type of things or does certain type of things, and you turn that individual to speak against what you're doing. That's confusion. That's going to turn away a lot of people just on that alone, because they're so tired, of all of the failures that we've had. When I say we, I'm referring to Aboriginal people or Tongans on the continent of Northwest Mexam, and others who've come from places who are now, after many generations, here as well, other Aboriginal and autonomous people. So, I'm trying not to jump tracks here. I'm trying to stay focused on the question.
Yeah.
Did I answer that?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because
I think that there's another aspect, that I want to, make clear. So there's going to be individuals who are going to fit into certain categories, and there can be many categories of people who are going to speak, against Taj Tariq Bey and his teachings and the record that he has, and they're going to, come in different shapes and sizes. But that's not important. What is important is that you are able to recognize, I say, what Bukhari says or what Cujo says, but because your ability to read and comprehend a language that you're using. Okay, if the documents are written in English and you don't comprehend grammar and pronunciation and parts of speech and what they mean, and then you can't read. Basically, that's part of a reason why you can't read. And then you want to always use slang terminology and make that your everyday language, and you don't even comprehend the history of the slang that you're speaking. And so, if individuals like that on a basic level, that's how they conduct themselves, and they don't have any, they're not adhering to any kind of previous codes or ethics, or ethical behavior. And if like you can't be a scholar unless you've done certain things. Like you don't just wake up and get splashed by some sort of light So people need to be able to think and they need to ask questions. So we got to really, the most important thing for me is that people need to be able to put in positions that they're aware of this information that we commonly refer to as more science. Being able to disseminate that lawfully and efficiently is where you need to get, so look at self first, and then be able to pass that way of learning and those important things and characteristics down to your children so that they can defend themselves, because this is not about one leader. So just get everybody prepared, to basically, going back to what Moores always did, the 7 liberal arts and sciences. So that's all studying, that's all studying. So it's all about learning and everybody being able to make the right decision based on a solid foundation, mentally. And a lot of the people Taj Tariq Bey doesn't need to respond to because they don't fit that criteria. A lot of these, people exhibit mental problems. And I'm not downing them personally.
No, I was just gonna ask that. Let me ask you this. So from with what you're saying, right? How would you take it saying, they are exhibiting, what did he say? Mental midgetry.
Mental problems.
Mental,
or some form of mental illness.
No, but he's saying mental midgetry.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Taj, to show the hypocrisy of even having to respond to these people.
Right, and I think when you establish that, then you see why, that's, based on Taj's journey and where Taj is mentally and his journey and his body puts him at a certain position where, he shouldn't have to defend him. That's where people like Cujo Adwell comes in. Okay, so that Cujo, one of the things that I think is wonderful about what you do is the fact that you can relate to an earlier generation, and so you can, say things in a certain way that maybe I wouldn't be able to say so, and get that message across to these young people. And I think that's, where you and individuals like yourself are so much needed, because you can, be able to put something out there that will be on the record and, at social media, which is a big part of what the young people, teens to early 30s are doing and, spending much of their time on. So, now you have a voice, a platform to where you can counteract that, so to speak. It's not that that's what you do. That's not your main goal. I'm not trying to say that, but so Taj is at another level. Taj is a true elder and a scholar, and if Taj Tariq Bey spent all of his time speaking to these knuckleheads on the corners, that are, some of them may be COINTELPRO, some of them definitely are. Some of them are just, brothers with some, that are misdirected and, whose talents are being used by others. I don't know. But what you can do is, you should be asking yourself certain questions and be ready. In order to be ready to do that, you have to read. There's no escaping it. You can't call yourself a Moor and come into the movement at one level, intellectually, and say that in 20 freaking years, that's where I'm going to be again. No, you should be thinking about learning a damn new language, perfecting the language that you're speaking, broadening your horizons, working on self, being the best person that you can be. is necessary to read and study, then, and you want to call yourself a Moor, okay, then you can call yourself a Moor by bloodline, okay, that's your right. That's natural to you, if in fact you are a Moor. But in terms of cultural practices, daily practices and rituals, you're not a Moor.
Right.
You're probably more European than a Moor. In terms of how you eat, how you think, what you do from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. You see what I'm saying? So there's a whole lot of different ways that you can slice this cake. Is all I'm trying to say.
Right.
And when you have that information, you can understand what's going on.
How did Taj Tariq Bey help you come to that understanding or understanding or realization?
Oh gosh, it was profound. It was life changing. Right now, as I speak, the hairs are raising up, and I'm getting this electrical shock type feeling coming up on the back of my neck. Like the first time you put the feds on.
Yeah.
And so it was profound because I had always had a sense as a Libra and a Virgo on the cusp, right and wrong growing up. So, there were many things that my upbringing, part of it coming out of the island, a great part of it coming out of the so-called islands, what we refer to as commonly as the Caribbean, the Atlantis Islands, an island and all that kind of thing. And then my father. So, it was refreshing to see him because I wasn't interested in, what you were wearing. I wasn't really interested in how cool you look and whatnot. I was interested in what you had to say and what you had done. What you had already demonstrated as a so-called leader or someone who's speaking. That's what I was interested in. Somebody who could, tell me, okay, this is some information you might be interested in or might help you, and here's some information that will definitely enrich your life. I recommend you check that out and come to your own conclusions. Get back at me and we'll talk. That's it. That's Taj Tariq Bey. And then when he opened his mouth, he was throwing out these big words. I had to go get the dictionary, and he was talking about dates, times, places. Because that's the concept that people have this movement.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, you broke up.
No, was that? Now, do you think that just so, because people might say that you're worshiping him just like you worship Noble Drew Ali or whatever. Like, is it him or is it a deeper thing or yeah?
I would ask them first. What's the difference between worship and respect or honoring? I would ask them to define worship because my definition of worship and honoring honoring an individual may be really different from what theirs is because most people that I interact with, my definition of the word friend is drastically different than what theirs is. So that's the first thing I would try to set the stage with, and then from there I could be able to, know where I'm at with these people or these individuals that I'm interfacing with.
But what I'm going to is like, is it the individual or more the information? Like, is it the information having an impact? Like being that it's coming through this being, it's
No.
taken at a different way.
Actually, you know, there's good and bad to that social, that individual, you know, that individual that you may see or you see behind the camera. You know, it may be associated in some way, shape, or form with, you know, with your nationality, or it may not be. But that can have its, you know, pros and cons, you know. But what is always there is what is said, yeah, and what can you reference, and what, you know, what can you take. So over what he looked like is what he was, the information that was coming out of his mouth, and he spoke. You know, like if I'm trying to learn something from a guy who is going to fix my car, I don't give a damn if he speaks perfect English. Alright? As long as he can fix that damn car. Alright? Now, if I'm going to go to an institution of higher learning, I don't want my professor to sound like the guy who's going to be fixing my car, or maybe the guy who I hoop with on the weekend. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So when I hear Taj Tariq Bey talk, that sounds like an individual who's put a lot of time in cracking that book. So if I hear somebody talk and they don't sound like they spent a lot of time cracking the book, I'm not going to listen to what the hell they got to say unless they just coming at me, you know, about something that they just did or that they know that they can convey to me. That's different. But, you know, I'm not going to listen to some guy who doesn't know the difference between an adjective and a noun. You know, and this is where I'm at today mentally. You know, I'm not going to listen to him talk about something that pertains to jurisprudence, history, law, or any sort of what people would refer to commonly as legal issues in the community. I'm not going to listen to him talk about none of that, because we have something for individuals like that in the, you know, a name for people that in the military, and it's called a house lawyer. Excuse my language.
It's called a what?
It's called a shithouse lawyer.
Okay.
All right. You know, and so we don't listen to people like that, and that's another reason why Taj Tariq Bey don't need to lower himself down to that level. I know people have used those terms a lot in the past, but I think it's apropos here. There are levels to this thing. You know, first in your own personal development as self, and there are levels to how you choose to interact with the nations of the world. As Taj Tariq Bey has used, that's where I get that quote from. Actually, is from Taj Tariq Bey. You know, when you are a child, you do as a child does, and it's quite clear that look, I'm not downing brothers wholesale because they don't speak perfect English. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm talking about them knuckleheads who say they are leaders. You know, when you are a leader, and you know, you then go ahead and say that that you're doing something to affect masses of people, and you talk about something or you sell something, you are now backing that by your word.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how it goes. And so, you know, all I'm saying is that if you say that you're going to help the masses and you're going to sell them some kind of package, then you need to be able to articulate that. And I need to be able to ask you questions without you getting upset at me because I'm ignorant or because I don't know what you know. No, I'm asking you questions about this life-changing thing that I'm about to do. And you're going to get upset at me? No. So I don't need to talk to individuals like that. That's why if you're going to be helping people and you're going to be talking about civics, law, history, things that can impact people's lives in a very large way, it can ruin families, etc. You need to know what the hell you're talking about, and you need to demonstrate that you've put time in cracking a book. Because if you sound like Willie the Lump Lump on the street corner, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just not going to listen to you when you start talking about history, law, and all of that. I'm not. And if you can't tell me, okay, give me some books, and break down some paragraphs, no, then I need that, But so when I listen to Taj Tariq Bey, of course, there are times he gets emotional, but there's always some dates, times, and places. And when you go and you check it, and you find and you verify, and it's right. So, and then you double check it, and it's right again. And I've done this on numerous occasions with a lot of dates, times, and places that he's dropped when I didn't hear nobody else dropping this information. Like, where were you 20 years ago when, Taj Tariq Bey was dropping this information? Like, what the hell was you doing? Like, some of you weren't even born, or correction, coming or came into this world at that point. So, it's just, people's mentality and how they view the world is a big issue here. But when it comes to this stuff, it doesn't matter. If you don't know certain historical facts that have been made available through people like Taj Tariq Bey, through people like Prophet Noble Drew Ali, through people like C.M. Bey, through people like Marcus Garvey, and the list goes on and on and on, then, you just are an individual who's in a clubism, and that's not what this is about. About think, crucial decisions, know the history, be able to speak on it, be able to write about it. That's what this is about. Okay? Because we don't have time to just focus on one teacher or one leader. That's not where we're at in 2017. All right? It's time for everybody to be that republic that people talk about. Look up the word republic. I yield the floor.
Islam. But at the same time, there's as much as we know that, it has to be nipped in the bud. Every chance that we get, because, like you said, the information from certain people, Taj Tariq Bey specifically, is giving us certain reference points that, some of these reference points, like you said, change people's lives. Like, I mean, there's people who don't stop calling to give honors. Just get them a message and tell them I said thank you. You know what I mean? Like, those don't stop. If you ever talk to Taj or whatever, just tell him thank you.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
I want to say something here quickly too, because I don't know if I'll ever, get this out, man. I have a terrible memory, but people like Taj Tariq Bey, and I want to preface this statement. Look, I don't have to agree with every little point that a man espouses in order to build something, a nation, or take activity in good neighborly practices or what have you. I don't need, that kind of motivation, but for, it's like, people just have to think clearly. All right. This is a lot of information. I'm just going to shorten it and just going to say there's a lot of information that's involved. You know, Cujo, and more science, or what people refer to as more science. People need to stop going on just emotional and ask themselves, well, can I define what the hell more science is first? If you can make that type of decision, we need more people who ask those kinds of questions. You know, stop jumping on bandwagons when you're not asking these types of questions. And if you have an individual that is you know, standing on a soapbox or writing something or you know, on a YouTube platform, and you can't ask these questions, that, you know, that means that you are essentially a slave, you know, because you don't have any stake in the game. You're just waiting to be entertained or waiting to be told what to think. No, we need people who are cognizant of certain factors in terms of making decisions that impact your life. That's what this is about. Okay. When I say this, more science, and so it's not something that you can come into and you know, get it, Cujo, in like 2-3 weeks. It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
You know,
just because you said more science a few times, from your perspective, is what Taj Tariq Bey teaches relative to Noble Drew Ali, and how?
Oh my God, I could write a book on that. Listen, first of all, in order to be a nation, in order to say that you have a particular bloodline, a specific bloodline, okay, in order to say that you come from this particular lineage or ancestry and all of that, you know, you have to be referring to a nation, a geographical or series of geographical land masses. At some point in time, flags are going to come into the conversation that refer to your nationality. Okay. So that's number one. And in order for you to interact with each other on a daily basis socially as part of a civilization, you have to generate records, record keeping, documents, etc. That's part of the course, because otherwise we would just be walking around here listening to what Smokey Joe Pete said and believing it, and then just run it down and, you know, okay, well, he said it, so it's all right. No, where's the references, i.e. libraries, etc. And so when you look at the importance of civics and what civics is, first define civics and what it is and how it can impact you, you already comprehend that it is a must for you to be able to comprehend what an affidavit is. And what the difference between an affidavit is and some other memorandum for record or some other request, you know. So it's extremely important that you comprehend what a signature is and how that applies to you having a certain nation. Because now you comprehend that if you have a family crest or seal and you're using it, then you're talking about nation, nationality. All of that is represented when you hit that hot wax. And so if people can't comprehend that, and Taj Tariq Bey is talking about that, Noble Drew Ali obviously was talking about that, because you can't have a nation without civics. You can't have a civilization without law and records, you know, and every nation being able to determine what size of demographic is on this part of the continent and over here and all that sort of things. You know, that's all very important. that without some form, shape, or form, or record. And that's how nations deal with each other internationally. That's why you got ministers, and that's why you got, people who that work for a lot of corporations who are called politicians, but the point is that if you can't read, and if you don't know about the history, and if you don't know how that applies to the laws that took place during a given time frame, then anybody can tell you anything. That's why they didn't want some of your foremothers and forefathers to read. That's the real reason why they didn't want you reading, because they had just murdered your fathers and your grandfathers and your grandmothers and your mothers, and so now you're coming, that generation back then now came into the world with a clean slate, and that's just part of a small part of the overall story. You comprehend all of it. If you don't know how to interact, how to speak, and you don't know the importance of why you're not taught certain things in school. It's not just, I'm sorry to tell you, people, but you were born into, or you came into a situation that is a rough one on this planet. And if you're now just learning that, and you can't comprehend some of the things that, or some of the reasons why it's necessary for you to read, why it's necessary for you to know the importance of law and history, and looking into it, and reading for yourself. I've never heard Taj they say, believe everything I tell you, because I said so. Or everything that I told you, it is because I said so. I've never heard Taj they say that. I've always heard him say, hey, here's the information. Check it out yourself. That's why I'm giving it to you. That's why I'm telling it to you. As far as and Noble Drew Ali, its impact, it's crucial. You can't hope to even, this is so ridiculous on so many levels, but you can't even hope to maintain an organization called the Science Temple of America, or even a hospital, even a non-profit, without having some basic rules and some laws down that you follow. And I'm not saying like religiously, like as in, praying and all of that. I'm just saying, come on. Civics is integral. Etymology is extremely important. You don't know what etymology is and its relevance, and the game that's been played to keep your people out of knowing about law and being able to enforce contracts and being able to stand up and speak this information intelligently without starting to cry or break down or shake or shiver because you're too damn scared to speak to the quote-unquote white man, right? But you'll be able to shoot your brother down for stepping on your damn sneakers, right? I'm sure everybody's heard that statement. Well, it's true, all right? Because you know that your brother's pops and his moms ain't got the cachet to come in and get your ass and snatch you out, snatch you up, tighten you up like you need to be tightened up. So you're going to do that to your local brother, but you damn sure ain't going to go across town and do that to them foreigners. Well, I tell you what, if you have information that you can verify and think upon yourself, and nobody is trying to keep you as a mental slave, then you should get that information, study it, analyze it, critique it, write about it, put some notes down. And that's another thing. If how can you be a scholar and you don't have notes? Like how can you be a scholar and have that, never even tried to write like a book report about something that you talk about, and every time that a lot of individuals generate something, and I've never written a book, but I'm working on doing other projects right now because I haven't obtained enough information to write a book as yet, all right? And I'm not a master, but I recognize masters when I see them, and I know Taj Bey has a master in a particular genre, and that's history and law. And there may be other things that he may be masters of, whether it's carpentry or whatever. But I do know this. I'm not going to listen to no shithouse lawyer, all right, who can't answer questions. And then when they do answer questions, they cut you off, and then they change tracks on you mid-conversation. They'll overtalk you. They'll get loud. They'll start calling you names, right? They'll want to fight you, and they'll want to hurt you. If you live in there, or if you live in there, in the area they can get at you, that's what they'll do. They'll talk about you. But will they ever fix anything? No. Will they ever put themselves in danger? When you buy their package, go ahead and call them and see what happens. When you get in trouble, call them at midnight and see what happens.
Straight up.
Yeah, so to answer your question, yes, there's a great deal of in terms of the information, the body of work that he's put in, and the things that he's talked about. Now, and he should be respected, and he should be honored for that, and you should be able to recognize that, because when, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, in his own words, okay, is telling you the actions, showing you the actions that he took. He didn't have an army. He didn't come up on shore and started shooting people. He didn't blow up nothing. Like there wasn't no 2 million man army behind him. He didn't have an Air Force. He didn't have a Marine Corps. He didn't have none of that. But what he had was knowledge, and he knew what was written. And so he took that information, he compiled it in the shortest, smallest piece of documentation that he could give to the people at that time in history of where we were overall mentally. And if he didn't do that, you would have never looked at the damn document, because it would have been too intense. It would have been too complicated for your dumbed-down minds to view. When I say you, I mean ours. Where were we at as a people after, all of the traumatic events that we have been through, right? So he put that information into this, what is called the Quran, the Holy Quran, erroneously referred to as the Circle 7, because that's not a damn circle on the cover. Ain't nothing circular about it, or rather there are some circular things about it, but that's not a circle. So I'll just repeat that. Let's just be specific to when it comes to those adjectives, but that's not a circle. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, Taj Tariq Bey, Noble Drew Ali, there's a definite, in terms of civics, and it's important in jurisprudence, and so definitely, I mean, and if you can't make that kind of distinction, then you don't need to be talking, really. You really didn't. You really need to be listening and reading. So in terms, again, specific civics, jurisprudence, law, history, in that type of arena, Taj Tariq Bey, as far as I know, is supreme. And there are other individuals out there, but I would definitely say that, there's relevance to his material and his teachings to what the Prophet
Let's rise. Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through His holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Islam.
Amen.
Amen. Prophet warns all Muslims, governors, ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the public streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure of obeying these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the Prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the Prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The Prophet therefore is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their Prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the Prophet through the will of Allah to redeem His people from their sinful ways. Noble Drew Ali. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now, by the same people on our side of the nation that claim I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your Prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the Prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. This is the instruction from your holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and His judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near. So says Allah to His divine prophet, I Noble Drew Ali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. You have one audio to play. Just pull that up. It's apparent that all the people of the world who have national standards are moving toward a more unencumbered existence. They're taking a position internationally to stand up to the colonial forces in some way, shape, or form. There was a speech that was done. Sister Khalifa sent this to me. I actually forgot about it, and it plays right in tune with where it is Moors have to have their mindset. Because, like Noble Jawali told the Moors, every nation has suffered slavery. And, you know, when people's perspective of every nation suffered slavery is ball and chain or whatever like that. But there's many different forms of quote unquote slavery. Right? We had a few questions today too, so we're gonna hit some of those up as well. And of course, if anybody has questions, just shoot them out. So this is the Ghanaian.
Welcome to the Great African Leadership Series, where we feature great inspirational speeches and quotes from African leaders.
I think there is a fundamental misstatement of the issue in the question. We can no longer continue to make policy for ourselves, in our country, in our region, in our continent, on the basis of whatever support the Western world or France or the European Union can give us. It will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. Our responsibility is to charter a path which is about how we can develop our nations ourselves. It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves. And if we are going to look at the next 60 years as a period of transition, a period whereby we can stand on our own feet, our perspective has not to be what the French taxpayer decides to do with whatever surpluses that they have in France. They're welcome. They're appreciated. Whatever interventions that the French taxpayer through their governments make to us are appreciated. We're not going to lick a gift horse in the mouth. But this continent, with all that has happened, is still today the repository of at least 30% of the most important minerals of the world. It is a continent of vast, arable, and fertile lands. It has the youngest population of any of the continents in the world. So it has the energy and the dynamism. We have seen it. These young men who are showing so much resilience and ingenuity in crossing the Sahara, finding ways to go across with rickety boats across the Mediterranean to really, those energies, we want to have those energies working inside our countries. And we're going to have those energies working in our countries if we begin to build systems that tell the young people of our country that their hopes, their opportunity are right here with us. Migration and the movement of people is being presented in a manner which suggests that somehow it's a new phenomenon. There's nothing new about it. It's as old as man, the movement of people. And it has always been linked to the same thing. The failure of where you are to provide you with an opportunity, so you move somewhere else. Those of you who are familiar with 19th century European history would know that the biggest wave of immigration in 19th century Europe, the latter part of it, came from Ireland and from Italy. Waves upon waves, generations of Italians and the Irish people left their countries to seek the American paradise, largely because Ireland was not working, Italy was not working. Today, you don't hear it. Italian young people are in Italy. Irish young people are in Ireland. We want young Africans to stay in Africa. And how are they? And it means that we have to get away from this mindset of dependence. This mindset about what can France do for us. France will do whatever it needs to do for its own sake. And when those coincide with ours, tant mieux, as the French people say. But our main responsibility as leaders, as citizens, is what we need to do to grow our own countries. What are the institutions that work, that would allow us to have good governance, to have accountable governance, to make sure that the monies that are placed at the disposal of leaders are used for the interests of the state and not for those of the leaders, to have systems that allow for accountability, that allow for diversity, that allow for people to be able to express themselves and contribute to fashioning the public will and the public interest. Our concern should be with what do we need to do in this 21st century to move Africa away from being cap in hand and begging for aid, for charity, for handouts. The African continent, when you look at its resources, should be giving monies to other places. We have huge wealth on this continent, in our own country of Ghana. And we need to have a mindset that says, we can do it. Others have done it. We can also do it. And once we have that mindset, we will see it as a liberating factor for ourselves. We keep talking about how it was that Koreans, Malaysians, Singaporeans, who got their independence at the same time as us. We're told of that at the time of Ghanaian independence, per capita Ghanaian income was higher than that of Korea. Today, Korea is part of the first world. So is Malaysia. So is Singapore. What happened? Why did they make that transition? And 60 years after independence, we are where we are. Those are the matters that should concern all of us as Africans, as Ghanaians. And not, when I say so with the greatest of respect to the French president, I think that the cooperation of France is something that I am, as you know, a strong friend of France. I am Francophile. So I don't have any difficulty with that. But I'm talking about our own propulsion, what we need to do to get our countries to work so that we can create the conditions that would allow our young people to forego this hazardous effort to get to Europe. They're not going there because they want to. They're going there because they don't believe they have any opportunities in our countries. So that should be our focus. And I believe that with that if we change that mindset of dependence, that mindset which is contingent on aid and charity, we would see that in the decades ahead of us, the full flowering of the African peoples would take place. And that new African personality that was talked about at the time of our independence will become real and imminent in our times. That's what I'm saying. I hope that I'm not upsetting the questioner or even some of my friends who are here. But these are my strongly held beliefs. And that is the reason why I've adopted as the slogan of my presidency, of my period of the Supreme Office of Ghana, that we want to build a Ghana beyond aid. A Ghana which is independent, which is self-sufficient, that is capable of standing on its own feet and building its own life. We can do it.
No, that's Ghana. And they're speaking from the perspective of self-sufficiency, self-governance, being independent, not being subject to the colonial operations, right? Move Africa away from begging, right? All these so-called leaders in these quote-unquote African countries know about nationality, know about Declaration of Human Rights, know about all the things that we talk about relative to us being free, right? When identifying others, and you know, keep in mind these are things to use to show that it's not only Moors that talk like this. Everybody in the world is talking like this at this moment. Why are they all of a sudden talking like this? Remember, they were down with getting aid. They accepted the contract to get aid because of whatever going on in their country. Now they're saying, we want to get out from under that. Only because they've been inspired by looking over here. That's why when he made reference to migration, he didn't talk about nobody coming to the continent as migrants. He talked about Europeans coming over here. Why? Because everybody knows that a quote-unquote African nation is who recognizes them. But if they're speaking from the perspective of knowing that an African nation allowed Europeans to leave Europe and go to America, then they know that there's a connection between Africa and America. Right? Speaking in national terms, not colorable terms. Koreans, Malaysians, Singaporean. He was speaking about, you know, the Europeans, didn't call them white ever. Didn't once make the mistake and call them white people. Call them by their national descent. Polish, German, Irish, you know, whoever he mentioned. French. And last but not least, the Corporation of France. Acknowledging that this entity that people identify as a country is actually a corporation. And, you know, the media here is not going to cover this. The media here is not going to make it known that the so-called African leaders know that European countries are companies. European countries are not countries. This is something known. Now remember, there's people on this side that are saying they're not down with what we're saying or whatever, because we're the race traders of whatever. But then the people who are on the continent where they say that they came from as slaves or whatever are talking the same way that Moors are talking. But they're not hating on them. They're not making the connection that, hey, African leaders are saying the exact same thing that Moors are saying. Even if we say, okay, we're going to go back to Africa, you're going to have to deal with the fact that no more begging. True. You're going to have to deal with the fact that everybody around there, because remember, when we say Africa, we're really and truly talking about Asia. So when we talk about Asia, Afro-Asia, we're talking about all these people too, who fall under the same banner as the people who are in this fake jurisdiction that they say is Africa. Because they all know that it's all about nationality. That's why on the videos called Ghanaian president embarrasses French president.
Okay. So that was a speech? But
yeah.
I seen the title. Okay.
Yeah. Right? And again, speaking from the perspective of national origin. So, no yellow people, Koreans. Right? No colorable terms. This is the same place where the Moors are. with making sure that when we speak that people are completely clear what we're saying. You didn't say the country of France. This is Ghana. Remember, Ghana is where these people say that they came from in the slave trade. So their leader, if they came from there, this is their leader. Their leader is telling them that France is a corporation. If France is a corporation, then that would mean Britain would have to be a corporation. England would have to be a corporation. Any of these, Netherlands would have to be a corporation. Europe even might be a corporation registered somewhere. Because we all know that Europe is in Asia. There's no continent of Europe. So look at how they're talking and recognize that, you know, they're making a plea to the world that, you know, we don't want to be classified as the people under some corporation. We don't want to tie ourselves to the corporation. We know that these European countries are corporations. Been telling people that. Maybe they're listening to their African leader tell them no. And actually consider that, okay, well, hey, maybe the Moors are onto something. Because UDAS and Canada are corporations, like we've been telling people, not countries. So, you know, this is not something that we're saying. This is something that the international community is recognizing. And because the international community is recognizing it, it should be something to let our people know that the Moors are onto something. Talking how we talk. Right. Any questions or comments? You could ask a question, sister. Go ahead.
You know, it is. I just have a comment. It is ironic how many people over in the Western Hemisphere, as well as many who are Westernized, they really think that they're a part of a corporation by their own will, but they just been bamboozled. You know, because one thing the president was making mention that kind of struck out. He's saying enough people are leaving their home, they're leaving their place, you know, they're leaving where they're leaving where they know their mother, they know their father, they know the name of their grandfather and great-grandfather and so forth and whatnot. They're leaving those places to go to these corporational places to feel as if they're getting a better opportunity for benefits, quote-unquote benefits. But all that they really need is within and around the boat, you know?
Right there. It's right there. But again, piece more. And again, it goes back to the whole thing about the status.
True.
You know what I mean? It's no different than Brother Omar and I were talking about when we were coming up here about, you know, we're having Noble Juali Day, right, on the 6th this year. And the 6th is the same day that they're doing the Maroon celebration. That they've been doing.
Where?
In Jamaica.
Jamaica,
yeah, the 6th, right? So we're making the connection that, okay, well, if they're doing it at that time, right, there has to be some type of connection in the cultures, because we're not looking into, we're not looking at it's a coincidence or whatever that is happening. They do their stuff on the 6th, Drawley's birthday is on the 8th. You know what I mean? Maroon's been around before 1886 when Noble Drawley was around. Right? So, you know, the unification of the cultures is something that once we recognize what the status is, like with them, they don't say that they're Moors, but they say that they're Maroons.
Maroon, yeah. They don't say they're black or whatever.
They don't say black and Jamaican and all that either.
Maroon.
You know what I mean? So their mindsets in a particular place with regard to who they are.
Correct.
Right? So all in all, like there's gonna be those individuals that are gonna be relaying the same message that we're relaying in different ways, shapes, forms, or whatever, and we have to be in the place mentally to recognize when this is happening and then using those people as reference to be able to prove to people, right? Even though truth doesn't need to be proven or whatever, but our people need something to say, oh, okay, yeah, now we agree with whatever, right? We don't have to use our stuff anymore. We could use people who they hold in high honors or whatever to say, they're saying the same thing that we're saying. So why not get down with this? Why be down with that? Why be down with a free African whatever, but not be down with a free America when you're over here?
Yeah.
And then you don't even have the intention of going over there unless it's to visit to come back here. But they claim that that's over there is where everything is and that's where the whatever is. So then why not go over there? Why stay here? And we're talking about people who, you know what I mean, they have the finance to say, okay, yeah, let's go for a trip. Let's go see the pyramids. Right? They'll spend whatever, $1,500, $3,000 to go over there and then come back here. It would be wise to just stay over there.
That's home for you.
But just like the president was saying, you know, there's nothing there. Which is why even people there are leaving and coming over here. But why is it that they're able to just do it like that? Because all this is the Moroccan Empire still. It's just modern day under disguise to European corporations, you know, people who don't study, you know, and then the actual people who are trying to get this thing back on track. But the hardest thing that we have is us doing that unification or coming together under this one common thing. This is why, again, we have, you know, different Asiatics that have come through these doors even. And making sure that their position is put out. That, yeah, well, I'm from wherever and we're Moors. We're not blacks and Africans and whatever else that our people try to impose us as.
And we ain't gonna be comfortable being called those things neither.
Right. A couple of these ones I'm going to save for Tuesday class. YouTube video that you could check out. Do Black Americans have the legal and social standing needed to address police misconduct? Right. Do Black Americans have the legal and social standing needed to address police misconduct? That's on YouTube. Islam to Brother Yusuf for sending that one.
You know, brother, if I may comment, there's
yeah, man.
Man, I don't remember the name of it, but there was oh yeah, it was the Black Lives Matter thing. There's a video I came across sometime, and the dude was making mention, like he's making mention to Hillary Clinton, and he had a female with him, a Moor female. He was a Moor man too, but I don't know if he knew that or not. But he was, well, obviously he didn't know that he was talking Black Lives Matter. So he's talking to Hillary Clinton, and he basically making mention to her that she has to speak up for more of us. You know, she's the mouthpiece because she's taking the time out to hear. And, you know, he's talking to her. He's talking to her and she's just shaking her head. Like, okay. And then she's saying, so what is it that you have done? You know, because marching, I'm paraphrasing now.
Yeah.
She's basically saying like, all these other nations, when they want something done, they go through the venue. You know, they do what needs to be done. But where, like, all she's seeing, you know, from what I'm seeing in the video, she's seeing that they're just making mention of why you're being bothered, not coming up with a solution, not comprehending the problem, but you're still gonna utter why you're being bothered. And as we were talking, the video, the YouTube name, that video, relapsed back in my membrane, you know?
Right. And you know, they from an energy perspective, yeah, they're doing the right thing, but you know, without a status, it's just energy. You know what I mean? Without a status, it's just playing around. You're not dealing with the real issues.
And she was willing. She was really willing to assist, but I can't. Y'all not even saying nothing. Y'all not even see it. I can't understand that language. You know, basically.
All right. Brother Salam sent I guess it was an article called Salem Moorish Bay's Public Proclamation, and he was asking the question about the color of claims within the article. Unfortunately, the article is not coming up, so that's how color it is, right? Like it's colorable to the point of the link that he sent doesn't work, right? Mr. Kang, Islam brother, I'm out of the darkness now as well. I'm in Dallas and I have not met any of the brothers here. I just ordered my ID cards last week and waiting on that so I can complete all other steps. I'm into the science of it real deep and gathering more books. Videos are educating, and many thanks. Keep up the good work. So again, for Moors in Canaanland, recognize that there's acknowledgement of what it is that has been done and continues to be done with our people. Again, the reference for another book, pick up also, I had this book list I wanted to read too. Chosen People from the Caucasus. Chosen People from the Caucasus. And a couple other ones to write down. John Baines, The Science of Love. John Baines, The Science of Love. The Opening of the Way. The Opening of the Way. Isha, I-S-H-A, Delubitz. D-E-L-U-B-I-Z. Isha, I-S-H-A, D-E-L-U-B-I-Z. Dictionary of Ancient Deities. Dictionary of Ancient Deities. Patricia Turner. Charles R. Coulter. Patricia Turner, Charles R. Coulter. Ladder of the Light. Ladder of the Light, William Gray. Ladder of the Light, William Gray. Anything by Gerald Massey? Any Gerald Massey lectures? The Emerald Tablet, Dennis William Hawk, H-A-U-C-K, Dennis William Hawk, the Emerald Tablet. And then from those ones, I'm sure you'll get some more.
So the last one, the Emerald Tablet?
Yeah, Emerald Tablet.
Tablet. Who's the author?
Dennis William Hawk, H-A-U-C-K, Hawk. Dennis William Hawk. And of course, you know, with the information age, you could probably find the PDF online. Brother Yusuf wanted to remind the Moors to also use as an example the face-to-face discussion that we had on 6th Dynasty when we were responding to Haven Bullets. So it's on our page, Canaanland Moors. Face-to-face discussion on 6th Dynasty responds to Haven Bullets on YouTube. Islam, my name is Eddie out of Florida, and I was emailing because I've been trying to contact Great Seal National Association of Moorish Affairs email and haven't received any response. Also, I sleep during the day, so I'm not able to catch her in time on Thursdays, which is the only day that she is accepting calls. I work during the weekdays at night, and don't have time to tune into weekly classes because I work during those hours. My concern is that I sent off paperwork for a judicial notice and proclamation about 2 months ago. I just wanted to know if the documents I sent made it. Well, to speak on behalf of one of the biggest issue, from what I understand, that people have with not receiving their proclamations and things like that is due to, one, their legibility of when they send in their stuff. So if you have a mail-in location that we can't tell if that's a 8 or a 3 or whatever, then your stuff's probably going to sit there. If, same thing with email address. If you write an email address and we can't tell if that's a 1 or a 7 or whatever, your stuff's probably just going to sit there, right? Yeah, Mark.
Well, just as I was talking with this brother ahead of me too, though, I think, and this is something that maybe we can get into today too. I think for some of us who've been here long enough, I think we all understand that a lot of this stuff that, well, it's absolutely imperative, the stuff that we're doing here, but to me, I see this being kindergarten stuff, right? Which is good because we're newborn, right? So we need that kindergarten stuff. But ultimately, in regards to exactly what you're talking about there, you know, you and I were talking about some issues with some products that we're getting.
Yeah.
To me, I think what we've seen is a, how would I put this? We've seen a denigration of protocols and ways of doing things. If something doesn't show up, or if you get something, a document that doesn't seem correct, or you can't post it off because if there's a phone number there, someone should be picking up a phone to phone someone, right, to try and get to the bottom of this. At least that, to me, is how I would hope things could be run.
Right.
Right? As I said, we're waiting on something that they you know, they didn't have a certain product, but no one's calling you to say anything.
Yeah.
So if you ain't calling, then that thing might be sitting on a
Sitting
shelf
on
for
a
something
shelf,
else. But why, like what is, like this is what, and I was gonna mention this with the brother. They're all happy to take your money.
Yeah.
But then to try and get that service now it's the fight.
Right.
And that to me seems to be a bit of the issue across the board, across everything. And then hold on, and then I'm tying that in with us here as Canaanland Moors. I mean, we talked about this in the vehicle. The real issue isn't anything to do with them. It's all to do with us. And I think that's the biggest problem for all of us, because I think and this just came to me right now in this moment, we've all gotten used to someone else doing shit for us.
Right.
So now,
that's
part of the issue, that we have all been used to that. So now we're mad at the man for not producing the food properly.
Right.
We need to be making our own food.
Making our own food.
But then also, but the problem with that is, we then have to be responsible for how that should be carried out.
Right.
Because we can't be having some half-assed food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so it's a two-pronged thing,
Right,
and that's really the sorcery
goes
behind
both
all of
ways,
this.
yeah.
That's really the sorcery that they've gotten us. They've dumbed us down from that perspective of being absolutely self-sufficient and running everything. So now we're continuing to go to them, and that's really the mindset.
Yeah.
And you've spoken to that too. It's like that has nothing to do with anything to do with them. That's all us.
Ultimately, what it comes
All
down to.
us.
And again, it's with you know.
So that's what.
You know, this is a special case, because you know they're making the argument that their life is at night.
Yeah. Well, bro.
So automatically you're at a disadvantage, because society doesn't work on that clock.
Right.
You know what I mean? So to expect, you know, things to happen when nothing's happening, right? Everybody's asleep and you want your package delivered, it's probably really not going to go like that. You're going to have to make some sacrifices.
Well, so beautiful that you said that, because I'm having a problem with my offspring. She's studying for her first set of exams, coming up with the excuse that the teacher never taught her anything.
Right, of course.
And I thought to myself, you're damn straight. And that happened when I was going to school too.
Yeah, there's nothing new. Teachers not teaching.
But you know what I remember? I remember when that exam came, there were questions on that exam that if you really look carefully, there was somewhere in your curriculum that information was there. Right? Whether he taught it to you or not, it was there.
Yeah.
That's how they get...
No, go ahead. Just like you said something.
That's how they get away with their stuff. But yet again, we realize all of a sudden now it's the teacher's fault.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I'm having a problem with that. And just sorry, and to the more who's speaking about working at night, exactly what you're saying is that if you're working, like it felt like there's a lot of excuses there. To a certain level.
Well, I mean, you know, that's why I said that.
And I know that's what you were sort of saying, but guess what? You may have to have a sleepless day one day, right?
Yeah.
Where you might have to forego getting some sleep.
Right.
To make some phone calls during the day.
Or make some whatever. And again, too.
But we can't blame them, because we know that there's...
Right. We know that there's, you know, and you know, let's even take it back 100 years.
But that's why I'm saying on the opposite end, those people should be calling him too.
Yeah.
To follow up with him.
Right.
As to why it's taking so long.
You know, how is the communication going to be made when telephone's broken?
Is telephone broken?
No, I mean, I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, if the email doesn't work,
yeah, how are you going to do?
if I send an email to somebody who bought something, and I send the email and then the thing's coming back saying, oh, that email is not right.
Wow, that's
like, I don't... What am I supposed? I gotta wait for these individuals to get a hold of me somehow, some way, shape, or form.
And that's fair
because I can't even.
But watch this. But remember, we were just talking about that with my incident.
Yeah.
They emailed me back.
Right.
For something.
Right.
And it just you said, but in the body of the email is my phone number.
Right. Is the number. Right.
So and no one phoned the number.
Right. That's if there was a number.
Right. Well, and I agree with
that.
I
mean, you know, some people aren't putting their number on the email because, you know, there's the privacy of the whatever, and people watch emails and they don't want their number out there, so they'll just leave an email address. But all in all, you know, when you deal with the quote unquote service, right? Let's go back 100 years to what was prophesied by Noble Drew Ali, for the more specifically that the day's going to come when you're going to need 16 secretaries to do this administrative work. That day is here right now, where, you know, so many people are waking up. So many people want to, you know, proclaim their nationality, get their papers, get their card or whatever like that. And there's definitely a bottleneck. There's definitely, you know, emails over inundated because you don't. There's not enough manpower. Because what should really be happening is that everybody in their own jurisdiction should be doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing in their jurisdiction.
Sure.
Because it's the same format, it's the same protocol, nothing's changed. You know what I mean? But if people aren't proving themselves credible to be able to have the responsibility of saying, yes, we're going to be a regency of Great Seal or whatever, because, you know, like we spoke with Seton around all that stuff about, you know, Great Seal and how they exercised 20 years ago. And stuff they were doing 20 years ago, 90% of the people here today aren't qualified to do that. That say they want to be a temple or be a study group or whatever. Ones that are out there right now aren't even including us. Certain stuff that they were doing back then, we don't have the capacity to do those things, and not because, you know, we can't do it, but because it takes manpower. You're only going to get so far with 8 Moors that are really on this info. And more than likely, it's only going to benefit those 8 Moors. It's not going to benefit everybody as a whole because they say they're down with this. It's like we say with, like Omar used the example. He could count himself for 5 Noble Drew Ali days. Right? And then when he checks the ones that he might have missed or whatever like that, you know, there were people from then that he only seen in the past 3 years. Where they been? What made them back off that two Noble Drew Ali years they weren't there? You know what I mean? All of that has to do on the individual. And it goes back to that thing about you know, this is about supreme responsibility. Because when we say turbans and feathers, now we're a nation now. We're not these little organizations out here waving banners anymore. As soon as we have that mentality, that, oh yeah, it's the organization, oh yeah, door, sign, whatever like that, you already cut yourself off at the knees.
You know, oh man, I don't know if the man remember the movie, but there's a movie where Samuel Jackson's, he's playing president of the United States, and something happens in his plane, and he gets, plane goes down and ends up in some cold region.
Oh yeah, with the capsule or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the boy is like, yo, my dad was a hunter, my dad was a, you know, and he's like, yo, for my Earth Strong birthday, I'm gonna do this. And I say that because the President of the United States is telling me, yo, you're only a boy. What? No, I'm doing this. Like, he's showing his will. No matter what, this is gonna get done.
It has to get done. So,
like, sometimes, you know, basically, like, when you know something is right and you know you're destined to do that, ain't nothing gonna stop that from you doing what you gotta do. You know, sometimes you have to even literally kill yourself. Your physical self and do the higher calling still, you know, but you're not gonna, you as an individual has to come to that awareness.
Awareness for self.
You know?
It's not gonna be outside that's gonna make you come to that realization. They might inspire it, might give you a reference point that leads you to that place where you actually realize what's up, but it's gonna be done by whoever has control of the body. Not going to be done by some external force, you know. And again too, like, you know, with regard, certain things happen on a spiritual, metaphysical level that we have to come to a realization of why things are happening. So, for the past 2 months, we've been plugging that, you know, you're going to have to be waiting on your proclamations, you're going to have to be waiting on your nationality cards or whatever like that, because Mother Anita had a fire at her house. Right? So, the service is not going to be running how it's supposed to run. And again, because there's not 16 secretaries, or 16 people who prove themselves worthy enough to say, okay, yeah, we're going to put the seal in your hands and let them send documents to you and you seal them. While, you know, I handle these things over here that I have to deal with because life just happens. Right? So, you know, it should have been a time of reflection for people who are looking to get, as soon as you hear, yeah, well, there was a situation and we won't be, you know, facilitating how we normally facilitate. Automatically, it should be out your mind about sending something. Until you hear that, oh yeah, stuff's back to whatever, now you can send something. You're not going to know that, you know, this place is under construction, but let's go there and see what's going on. What do you mean? They're under construction. Why would you even go?
It's not even open.
It's not even open.
You know, we can say this on the converse side, there'll be some places in the construction, offices are still up and running, and they're still working through the construction too.
Yeah, but why? But why? Because they have the capacity to do that. Because some other individual is no different than I was trying to watch Roman J. Israel, right? And I got a little way through, but it's no different than that when they realize that the firm shutting down and they brought in a new guy, and Roman J. Israel, who's been there, he's like, why you guys bringing in a new guy? Why don't you just use me? I'm more than qualified. He starts quoting off case law, blah, 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 and it was still a fight. And he knew what he was talking about. We don't even have people coming in that know what they're talking about. And it comes back to that same thing of, you know, this is really about studying. This is really about getting our mind right. There's no way that we came out of womb, Negro, black, colored, and then we're 30, we found about Moors, and then 31, we want tags, hospital, you know, all the stuff that comes with being a nation. We're Negroes for 30 years. There has to be a detox of the Negro. The Negro has to get expelled from the system. And really that's gonna be determined by how much somebody was entrenched in that Negro world that existed, or illusion. Right? Many of us who are really on this information, we would make the statement that, yeah, ever since I was young I knew certain things weren't right and all that.
Personally, that's me.
Right? So when you get to this level of it, it's not even a question. Should it be this or should we? Well, I don't know if Noah is a real prophet and all that stuff. We're right. Going with none of that. We already know that the frequency of this is letting us know, okay, yeah, we're in the right place.
When I was in school on the Smith name, and then I learned about the slave name. Wherever African people I meet, because they say we're from Africa, slave. So that's my concern from when I was in school. Why this guy say this is an African I meet? He named Zulu or he named something different than Smith.
Yeah.
How come
he doesn't have?
Yeah, so it's true then that I don't have my name.
Right.
It's true. So from then now I know. From going to school I know something not right. But I never was told what was right. Or something else. At least to try something else.
And again, we use the example with people who are, you know, waking up to this information and they know that something's wrong and, you know, they want to make a change. We're still saying, even if you know in your heart that, yeah, this is right, this is where I'm supposed to be, we're still saying, take a 2 years, 3 years, and go study before you go get some cards and papers. Still, even if you're spiritually aligned with this, even if Noble Ali came down to your dream, talk to you personally, you should probably still take 2 years, 3 years to study. If you can take 4 years, then even better.
Yeah, because remember, you're going into something that, for whatever age you are, you never heard about it.
Right.
So if you reverse that, look how many years you have to go back to it.
And that's the whole reason why.
Yeah.
You know, the difference is that, you know, if we look at it from the perspective of, you know, catch up, the information that we get when we came into this mindset, right, and then the information that we didn't have, right, and that big gap, right, it's gonna even itself out. You're not gonna be, you know, studying for 30 years Moorish information to get out of the Negro 30 years. Like, it's not gonna, right?
Not like that.
It's gonna be sped up. You know what I mean? But it all depends on how it is that you're coming into this.
Because that's,
You know, once we're coming in from the perspective of this card or this paper makes me a Moor, you stunt yourself. Because you think that it doesn't have nothing to do with studying. And you think that all that's to do with is me having this paper or this card. All I gotta do is just wave this and everything's alright. But the papers have to be backed up by the self.
Yeah, so.
Right? You were gonna say something?
Yeah, you know, it's ironic. You always hear the saying, "The pen's mightier than the sword," and then when you look into even the history of the pen, you see that it used to, at one point in time, was blood.
Right.
You know, and that's to show that it's a living individual who's sharing the energy that they get from their soul, or the energy that's generated from the soul, and it's being recorded.
Yep.
So to get these papers and not have an understanding of the liberty that comes out, you know, with the spirit of the law that is induced in the paper, to get it and not even try to muse with it and try to muse with it, you know, it's preposterous, to tell you the truth, you know. It's crazy. It's crazy. So yes, of course, life happens. Things happen where, you know, you might need to take a little break and things of that sort. But a little here and, you know, a little there, you know. But the key thing is you keep on pressing on, you keep on putting forth the effort, and you're sincere with it. You know, and it's not just about, as you said, just following and doing. You have to see it for yourself, because the more you study, the more you have your questions answered, the more you kind of even, you know, learn to start asking yourself the proper questions and come to the answer.
Yep.
You know, those things of those sort.
And again, like, you know, a lot of times, the true answer is gonna come within, not from some book. Even though the book was a reference point.
It ignites.
Right? It does something else when you actually when you actually read it. It solidifies the thing that was in you that you already knew.
Yeah.
That you didn't even have to go get the book to check the book for a reference or whatever. Right? You didn't even have to do that.
Yeah, man. It sent a charge.
Yeah, yeah.
From toe right on.
Right on up. Right on up.
You know?
You know what I mean?
Right.
There was a book, Brent Stonefish, Understanding the Impacts of Residential Schools.
Residential school?
Yeah.
Those are the native Indian school here.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right?
Crazy.
And there was some.
You know, a lot of these people of today's, they don't even know what happened with those people, you know, they don't even know.
Yes.
If they don't only know, that alone would make them not even want to be a Canadian. What they did to other people.
Exactly.
You know?
Now, the whole theme of the book is understanding the impacts but then showing the Aboriginal solution, right, to the schools. Just read the history of residential schools. At the core of the policy was education. It was, according to Deputy Superintendent Duncan Campbell Scott, who steered the administration of Indian Affairs from 1913 to 1932. By far the most important of the many subdivisions of the most complicated Indian problem. In the education of the young lay the most potent power to effect cultural change, a power to be channeled through schools and in particular through residential schools. Education would, Frank Oliver, the Minister of Indian Affairs, declared in 1908, elevate the Indian from his condition of savagery and make him a self-supporting member of the state and eventually a citizen in good standing. Right? Now, he declared that in 1908. Nojwali came 1913 and declared that for our people to be better citizens, all they have to do is go back to their ancient foremothers and forefathers' principles. That's it. You don't need some European school for that. And then he's Cherokee, which is quote-unquote Indians. Right?
Who's Cherokee?
Nojwali. The creation of the residential school. During the initial years of colonization, education of Aboriginal children did not follow the same path as the rest of Canada. In 1867, the British North America Act declared that the federal government would be responsible for Indians and lands reserved for Indians. This included education. With government and church regulated education, assimilation was the main theme for educating Aboriginal children. Education was later entrenched into the Indian Act of 1876 as a way to regulate and finance education of Aboriginal people. The 1867 Indian Act was the government's means to control Aboriginal people in their lands. In subsequent legislation, the Indian Acts of 1876 and 1880 and the Indian Advancement Act of 1884, the federal government took for itself the power to mold unilaterally every aspect of life on reserves and to create whatever infrastructure it deemed necessary to achieve the desired end, assimilation through enfranchisement, and as a consequence, the eventual disappearance of Indians as a distinct people. It could, for example, and did in the ensuing years, control elections and the conduct of band councils, the management of reserve resources, and the expenditure of revenues, impose individual landholding through a ticket of location system, and determine the education of Indian children. I think it was considered a weakness to cry, so we didn't cry. No matter what anybody ever did to you, very few cried. I don't remember that much crying, but I do remember the night times and the sobbing, and probably my own, crying myself to sleep night after night. It was pretty lonely like that. So this assimilation program of the Aboriginals continued on, and what this individual, Brett Stonefish, is bringing to light what we were talking about earlier, the connection in the cultures. So what they have throughout the book is all these different things dealing with this symbol, right? So the first one they have So the first thing that they talk about is values. The 4 values that are represented in this medicine wheel are teachings that a child would have received by example of their family. The child's first teacher would have been their mother. Right? That's matriarchal, that's more science, that's our culture. Matriarch is what rules. Right? Values that are based on common sense. Another thing we want to talk about. Islam to Brother Sheldon for the common sense quickies. Complex ideas and beliefs were taught using small anecdotes and stories. The most basic understanding of these values is as follows. Kindness. Treat people in a good way. Be kind to yourself and to those around you. Honesty. Be honest to yourself, which will allow you to be honest to others. Sharing. Share with those around you, and others will share with you. And then we have the youths that they're just exemplifying the sharing, right, between each other. That they have one bag, but both of them are dipping in. No argument, no disagreement about who's getting more, and well, he got 10, I got 9, and whatever like that. Just eat the stuff. Strength. To have faith in your own abilities, knowing the Creator has given you all the strength you need to succeed in life. And keep in mind, when we go back again, the child's first teacher would have been mother. So, to have faith in your own abilities, knowing the Creator has given you all the strength you need to succeed in life, would mean that the Creator is who? Mother. Right? This is why in the 101 questionnaire, when they ask the question, who made you? And the answer is Allah. And you start looking out and for crescent stars and stuff like that to prove that that's the Allah that made you. You don't know what you're talking about. You really misinterpreted the lesson. Because your mom made you. We would say Allah is the father, but that's mother. Right? With reference to legacy of residential schools, the medicine wheel is an integral part of understanding misplaced values. The positive values above were replaced with their negative counterparts: anger, dishonesty, selfishness, and powerlessness. Right? So, the positive virtues get replaced with the negative virtues. And then the negative virtues is what they would teach the Aboriginals, using their own wheel.
Their own agenda. They have their own agenda.
Right? So they would, you know, it's no different than they got the fezzes on, but somebody who doesn't have the eye was not going to recognize markings on it, you know, tassel, tack down. They just see fez. Taking the actual and making the actual be the foundation to teach the fiction. Right? The negative counterparts. Right? Moroccan flag. Negative counterpart, goat head star. And then have everybody, oh, see, you guys have the goat head star. And all that. The goat head star is the upside down one. This is not upside down on the flag. This is the right side up. What do you mean it's the goat head star? But they've been trained by the operatives to look at things backwards. Like the first time you tried, if you were from a family, right? Whether both parents are there, one parent was in there, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But if you were a family that embodied these virtues, you wouldn't even make it to the door with your clothes backwards like crisscross.
See here.
You wouldn't make it to the door. You get slapped out those clothes so fast. that they would switch around before you went outside, and you realize how fast that's not style and cool and all that stuff. That pants backwards.
Serious wailings you get.
Serious wailings you get. You think you go outside pants down here with these values going on in the household? It's not happening. But again, once they take the actual and replace all the things with the negative counterpart, this is why we see what's going on. Because everybody is looking at like, oh yeah, that has to do with us and whatever like that. That ain't nothing to do with us. It's just being presented like that it's our stuff, but it's not really ours. Right? Past. When the children were taken away to school, their families were told that it was going to be a good thing. They were supposed to learn skills while being taken care of and treated with kindness, honesty, and caring. They were told to have faith in the process. The families were lied to, and the children suffered the negative impacts of what is known today as the legacy of residential schools. So the connection with it today is how they don't even come get the children. Well, I mean, they still send the bus, but they know that when they put them on that bus and they send them to the institutions, they know that the cultures who have the values, they know that when they come home, they're getting detox from everything they learned up in there. They're not just going there, learn, and then come home and they play video games all night. Oh yeah, do your homework, then you can play video games all night. No, that's not going on with the culture people. They're saying, you got 4:30 to 9:30, you got whatever school that we tell you you're going to, so you can get the right info. Then tomorrow, you go back there, you go eat the fish, spit out the bones, and then we come on, we detox you again. And constantly do this. And then Saturday and Sunday they got school too. But again, that's only with the ones who are recognizing that there's values that comes with society.
Some of them never even get to go through that because they took them from their parents.
Right.
And like from here, they take them to Niagara Falls.
Yeah, like totally away from.
No coming home in the evening. No evening coming home.
Right.
Well, you
to
know,
get little, get what is at home.
Right.
But also, even when you look at this wheel, justice is still the last principle.
Yeah.
That from the child being taught from mother, the importance and the epitome of why these values are so important. Then as when they get to like when they come to the conclusion of what all these values are supposed to come on out to, they would see. They might not use the word justice, but they would see. But this is how you are justified.
Right.
When you want good karma or the force to come on out and increase you, so forth and whatnot. Right. Whereas they will be taught. Instead of like them just going to the school and being taught about, oh yeah, peace, they call it the peace pipe. Yeah, they did the peace pipe. And that's how they just, oh yeah, this peace pipe, something going up pipe and something go up in smoke. Right. But not realizing that it was you sharing, you as an individual taking your energy and with another individual who's of like mind and worthy to share his energy or her energy with them. And you're doing that through the peace pipe. Right. I don't really know it in that sense.
Right, but it wasn't something just go do whatever.
And then after you might then some people are indoctrinated, would say, oh, the peace pipe is a terrible thing, it's a bad thing. But then again, you look around and you see these corporations. They're doing their own offering with the buildings going up in smoke and all kind of damaging all kind of. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's like they ain't giving back. They ain't giving back reverence to that which they are supposed to.
Any other comments? So again, you know, medicine wheel as an example, and then we have our medicine wheel.
Okay, wow. And it actually does have it's divided
Yeah,
into four too.
we have medicine wheel too, because we're Aboriginal indigenous.
Straight. See this thing.
It might not be called medicine wheel to us,
Right,
but
it is healing.
words tell, pictures tell 1,000 words.
Serious.
Right? Circles of responsibility. The Anishinaabe are taught that there are 4 levels of responsibility that humans have been given by the Creator. Each level of responsibility is a part of the other, and the model below shows how human life is connected to other lives. It should be noted that the model could be extended to show many other levels. For example, extended family, clan system, the universe. However, for the purpose of this document, we will stick to the basics. The following is a brief description of how the model works. Self. The inner portion of the circles represents the responsibility that people have to self. One must take responsibility for their life first and foremost. Right? So again, with regard to what we're dealing with. Yeah, nationality is the order of the day, stand on your square and all that stuff. If it's at the threat or whatever of your life, know that you're standing up for something for real. Right? If your life's on the line for it, know how real it is. We must be able to take care of our health and to provide our body with what it needs. Allow oneself to learn continual and to understand and practice integrity. Right? Going back to what Brother Omar was talking about with the service. Right? Allow oneself to learn continual and to understand and practice integrity. To allow oneself to become freely but maintain values within those beliefs. Understand and maintain some sense of balance within one's own life. With a better sense of balance, a person will be better equipped to help others. Right? So, this is why they have self on this beam right here. Right? Because really and truly, self is really the 7 between the 4 quadrants. Self is really self. Self is really you. You know, they say medicine wheel, we say earth plane. And then we say earth plane, and then all the directions on the earth plane. And man is self inside the 7. Right? Self is also I, which we're not going to say ego and mix up these two. Right? And I is, again, self in the 4 quadrants, right? Right? Self, I, which is the button, in the middle of the earth plane, and then the 4 holes or the 4 air vents is the same 4 directions and the same stuff that they're showing. Right? That it's all one, it's all relative culture, saying the same stuff that we're saying, even symbolizing things the same. That they got self on the beam of balance. And with a better sense of balance, right? So you don't want self here. You don't want self here. You don't want self over here. Right? Self has to be balanced first. Which again goes back to the same thing about, you know, if you think that card makes you, then self is not balanced. If you think papers make you, then self is not balanced. You think fez, turban, whatever make you? Flag make you?
If you think you're black, make a color that balance.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Family. The next level of responsibility is the responsibility to family. We have a responsibility to help and guide those in our family to the best of our ability. We have a responsibility to ask our family when we need their help and guidance. A family that is trying to achieve a healthy and good life has a responsibility to each other, is to help each other achieve the level balance that each family member needs. Right? So family. Once family is taking full responsibility for their quadrant, when that family grows, it will spread to the other quadrants. Right? But remember that once the family starts spreading into quadrants, now it's turned into a community now. It's not family anymore. It's a broader view now. It's the realization that we're becoming. Right? This is why with the same thing that with the whole temple idea and us being family, but we all got elbe, we got feathers, turbans, or whatever like that. That means that we're practicing the same stuff. We have to be related. We got a holy book that tells us about a covenant between our family, our brothers and our sisters, making sure. Didn't say our nation members or our whatever, our brothers and sisters. If we're talking brothers and sisters, then we're talking family. Right? Community. Yeah, go ahead.
It's funny. I read that Asiatic, the covenant Asiatic, and I'm actually on it right now, and I didn't get to finish it, right? But there's one part that stuck to me. It says, paraphrasing, remember what brought you together when y'all separate.
Right.
You know,
in the world.
You know, so
right.
When you check out like that wheel and you see self, and that applies to every individual within the family.
Exactly.
So when the family sees that, and then even when they spread out, and now when they're operating and going on, if they do something and something takes them away from realizing, the fruition of that wheel, being balanced, and they gotta look back into themselves and look back into the principles that was here before them
even,
and check themselves, get themselves back in balance.
Get themselves back. And again, when you start drifting, right? When self starts drifting, other stuff gets thrown off that have nothing to do with self. Once self is balanced, then everything's going to revolve around self and be balanced, right? Unless you're in a position where self is constantly being challenged, because even to get to the place of a balanced self is a challenge in itself. Because of external forces, not even because self doesn't want to be balanced. Because remember that, the negative counterparts of this wheel now, right, would be, ego instead of self, right? Disunity instead of community, right? Individualism instead of family, right? We could say tribalism or corporate whatever instead of nation. Everything gets thrown off once self is not balanced. As soon as you start, just like we say that when you're on the path. Now, if you're a path and then you're 1 inch off the path, you might as well be in the bushes 50 miles down there. Because even that little bit off the path is gonna send you off to somewhere that maybe you don't want to really be, right?
Bitch.
Yeah.
Cliff.
Nation. Many different communities make up a nation. A nation is a body that is made up of different communities, families, and individuals. However, the nation is not charged with the same responsibility as the family or community. Their responsibility is to political affairs, negotiations, and protection of the communities within the nation. So it's the individuals who are part of the family, which is part of the community, to make sure that the community is straight. The nation is to make sure you're not encumbered in you exercising what your community's beliefs or faith or whatever it is. But again, once you have the negative counterparts, you would have people put nation first. And then they put nation first, but their self is spinning around the wheel like this, not balanced. And then it goes back to the same thing like we're saying, you know, well, how come, you know, stuff isn't together for Moors, and how come we can't order whatever and it come in a good time, and how come I always gotta this and that? Because the selves that you're dealing with are not looking at self. They haven't balanced self. And it has to be a personal agenda of Moors with this knowledge to constantly be working on self, as well as working on all the other stuff that you're working on. But self is most integral for everybody, not just for the individual, for the family. Self is, you know what I mean? It's like Brother Omar was talking about earlier. We were talking about an individual who he knows that he found out that, you know, dad had other life and all that stuff. He has all these other brothers and sisters and all that, right? So he took the position of, well, hey, you know, I'm going to go out and try to, you know, connect with all these people who are my stepbrother, stepsister, or whatever like that. So he goes, connects with all of them, and then at the end of it realizes that, well, if everybody was about it like I'm about it, unifying everybody, I wouldn't have been going out to freaking go get, people would have been calling me or whatever. You know what I mean? Right? Because he realized for himself, his own healing or whatever, for him to be balanced in this life, he had to go out and do that. For himself. Right? With the hope that other people are going to be inspired. So he said, well, you know what? Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating. I'll just wait and see, you know, after we met up and stuff, everybody exchanged everybody's number, email, or whatever like that. I'll just sit back and wait and see if anybody calls me. Nobody calls. Right? So now, you know, is that a slide on them? You know, we don't know really what's going on, but we know that for this one individual, he went over and beyond the call of duty for himself in hopes to make other people better. Now maybe those people are damaged. Because, you know, for somebody who is with a balanced self would recognize someone did that, especially if you didn't do it, and say, hey, I recognize what you did right there, and I'm going to make sure I keep in contact with you because you're somebody that maybe we need to be in contact with. You know what I mean? How you know where I changed my name 5 times. How you find me? You know what I mean? What is it? Oh, you know, and then you find out that, oh, well, you know, I'm a correctional officer, so I have access to certain computers, certain databases that, you know what I mean? We can find people. Just happened to be that I'm a correction officer, so I'm able to, you know what I mean, pull strings to find out things. Right? Now, how many strings could he have pulled for all those people if they would have recognized what's what? Right? And again, if the other people's self is straight, is square, you know what I mean? Like we're saying, right? Right? Square. Right? Square. 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 No matter which way you turn, you're standing on your square.
Right.
In the quadrant.
Right.
Right? But self is really balanced on this view. Self is really balanced on the horizon. You know? Right? It would be weird if we say, you know, the horizon is this way and then, you know, the sun rays go like this. Right? The horizon, the man wants to be upright, not dead. It's man's purpose to be upright, not to be on a dead level. Right? But the whole concept of upright is not going to be perceived from an aerial view. So this is the aerial view. This is looking down on man. Right? This is looking at man. This is looking down on man. So looking down on man on the earth plane, if you're seeing his face, you know that he's dead. If you're seeing the back of his head, you know he's dead. Looking down on man, you should be seeing the top of the eye.
Yeah.
Right? This is why, again, with the eye, right? And then these being the degrees of knowledge, it's coming from inside the eye.
Okay.
Like when you pull the plug out of the fez, these strings are inside the eye. Right? And this is the degrees that man has. 360 degrees. When he knows his true self. When he's standing upright. When he's upright, he's not dead. You not see any more with their eye hanging down like this unless it's halfway out. Because this button's halfway inside. Which again is tying us to that we're on the earth plane. Right? This is not something stuck on the top. Right? There's a hole and man is actually in the earth. We are the earth plane. Right? As well as we are the sun, right? Which goes around the earth plane. So I is being represented in self. Is being represented in all these forms. So why son is, why Jesus is son. Right? Because it represents man. True. Right? In an ideal setting, this is how these four sections are interconnected. Self, family, community, nation. Self, family, community, nation. A group of healthy individuals make up a healthy family. A group of healthy families make up a healthy community. A group of healthy communities make up a healthy nation. You got some time to do a couple more. We got a few. Any questions, comments?
That was self, individual, community, family, nation.
Self, family, community, nation. Self, family, community, nation. individuals, the Creator gave human beings two rights. The Creator gave us the right to be born and the right to die. In between, we were afforded time. Humans have free will, allowing us the choice, movement, to determine what we will do in that time, with that time. Because of the nature of birth and death, we really do not know how much time we have to be alive. Therefore, every moment in our life is meaningful. We have been given the choice to do whatever we want with our lives. We can choose to make every moment count, or we can make the choice to watch life go by. For this life journey, we are given gifts to guide us, tasks to help us prioritize, privileges which help us do more than just exist, roles and responsibilities to help us establish our place in life. With reference to legacy of residential schools. Since the 1960s, many Aboriginal people have engaged in civil actions against the governments of Canada and the United States. There are many civil actions that call for the governments to fulfill promises made to Aboriginal people. In Canada, Aboriginal people are asked for compensation for sexual and physical abuses that took place in residential schools. In the medicine wheel shown above, the idea of rights differs to the rights being pursued through protests and courts. The rights shown in the medicine wheel are in relation to rights of Aboriginal people as individuals, the rights given to each of us by the Creator. It is a way of looking at how we are to govern our own existence in our lifetime. They are in no way intended to take away from the rights that Aboriginal people are fighting to receive from governments. Vision. Vision. The teachings that exist within this medicine wheel show how a vision comes into being. It shows us the importance of creating a vision for ourselves. Moreover, how we are to bring our vision into being. We are not complete without a vision. If we have no vision, we have no purpose. And without a purpose, we just exist. We do not grow, we do not change or create change. Right? So when we even talk about the vision and relate it to where we are, right? This is the purpose of, the town hall meetings, for example. The town hall meetings are for people to present their vision so that the leadership can help the people manifest the visions that they are trying to achieve. The only way that the nation is going to be what it is, again, is once the self realizes their connection to the family. As a family, they realize the connection to the community, and they realize that what their responsibility is being part of this community. What is it that everybody has to do? Go ahead, Juan.
You know what's funny? I was actually waiting on that. I waiting on you to finish it to touch on that word you was gonna say, responsibility. Because when you was reading it and we said purpose, responsibility came up. And I was reading with an individual, and I was asking what's your purpose? What's your responsibility? He was basically saying, why do you have these books? I'm like, to remind myself of my purpose. And he's like, well, you don't need to read no books to know your purpose. I said, you're right to a certain degree, but not to know, to remind myself. Mm-hmm. When you are shown your vision, you don't have to have another individual tell you your purpose.
Right.
That's just you're gonna make a way
Yeah.
to make your responsibility be of effect. Whether it's you making sure you go out and get some science children book for your nephew or your brethren's youth or whatever the case may be. You're gonna make yourself responsible to do your part. To do your part to being content within, not to satisfy others.
Right. The process of fulfilling a vision is explained as such. A vision is an ideal of what we would like to accomplish. Time is required to fulfill a vision. And finally, we need feeling behind the vision, i.e., how passionate am I about fulfilling the vision? Does it scare me? Will it make me happy? This part is important in understanding your reason for fulfilling the vision and understanding what it will mean for you. After recognizing what your vision is, how long it will take, and how do you feel about your vision, there must be movement toward completing the vision. If there is no movement toward fulfilling your vision, it will only remain as an unrealized dream.
Yeah.
So when we look at what was presented by Noble Drew Ali and him saying divine and national movement, if movement is the last stage, that means he already gave us the vision. He already gave us the time, because he told us, or we're told, that the devil's time was over in 1914. So if devil's time is over in 1914, Noble Drew Ali came in 1913, then time is an illusion. We don't have to worry about do we have time. Because there ain't no devil time that we have to worry about. All we have to do is do what, again, which goes back into the feeling. Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, I brought you something that you can shout about. We're not shouting because we're mad. Please, more. We're not shouting because we're upset. He brought us something to shout about because this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to the Asiatics of America. Learning the truth about their nationality and birthrights. Right? This medicine wheel is an integral part of understanding the loss many Aboriginal people feel because of the residential school system. This allows the educator to explain the process of how one can fully understand what is needed to overcome the impacts of the residential school system. And again, remember that as Moors, our residential school system was being taught that we're Negro, black, colored. Our residential school system was...
We are from Africa.
You know, we're from Africa, right? Our residential school system is all the fictions that were told about our identity that we went with thinking that whoever was telling us, well, you know, they were in our best interest or whatever, right? When their whole play was to play us, right? And the last one. Actions. When the four races of human beings were created, each person was equipped with natural gifts to help guide them through life. The diagram above shows some of those gifts that were given by the Creator. Beliefs, East. Human beings must have something to believe in. Belief is the trust or faith in individuals have in following something that is good, right, and true. This also includes blind faith. This is faith in something that is not tangible or physical. As the expression goes, believing is not always about seeing. For example, people have faith in the Creator, faith in God, or an infant's faith in a mother's word. Values, West. Individuals also need guiding principles to go along with their beliefs. For example, the values mentioned in the values circle
were the first 4 principles afforded to a child by their mother to guide the child toward a good way of being. Attitude, self. As individuals, the attitudes we have towards various things are often affected by the values and beliefs we hold. Attitude involves thought processes, perception, and the sacredness of our beliefs and values. This is where it is determined how an individual will act upon instituting the beliefs and values in their lives. For example, does your kindness only extend to humans, or does it extend to all of creation? If your values and beliefs say that we should respect all our brothers and sisters, but we continue to say hateful things toward another race, then we are not acting upon our beliefs and values, nor do we hold them very sacred. Actions. North. As individuals, we must also act upon our beliefs and values based on our attitudes. Our actions determine how we talk, how we walk through this world, and are not always based on a planned vision. The actions and reactions that are based on our attitude, for example, if our belief system teaches us that all children are precious and must be treated with kindness and gentleness, then our attitude toward our children must be of kindness and gentleness. Also, our actions toward children must show that lovingness toward them. If a parent held these beliefs and values, but continually hollered and belittled their children, we would say that their attitudes and actions do not match their values and beliefs. And the river of fear, resentment, jealousy, hatred, anger. Resentment, jealousy, hatred, anger. River of fear. The medicine wheel above shows the emotions that can negatively impact a person's growth. The purpose for this teaching is to help people acknowledge and honor the different things that make them a human being. This teaching allows people to recognize feelings of anger, hate, resentment, and jealousy so they may learn to move beyond. Moving beyond these 4 elements of the river of fear. Fear. This is when you have a feeling that you are not good enough, an inferiority towards something, someone, or a situation. For example, if you were asked by an elder to do an invocation for them at a gathering, with fear, you may not feel like you are good enough to do an invocation. The opposite of the example above is when you have a feeling that you are better than, a sense of superiority or ego towards something. Again, using the invocation as an example, the elder may not be feeling well, but does the prayer anyways because they fear that nobody in attendance can do as good a job as he can with the invocation. Anger. This is a strong feeling that you have towards someone who you believe has hurt you. Hate. This is an intense feeling of negative bias toward one person or an entire group of people. The feeling may be so intense that it agitates the hater to even have the persons around or hear mention of the persons. An extreme example of hatred is when one takes another one's life with feeling of disdain toward the victim. Resentment. This usually occurs when a person has been wronged by something or someone in their past. Resentment is a way to hold onto negative feelings that come as a result of being wronged. Jealousy. Jealousy is a state of mind where one's attachment to something or someone is so intense that the jealous person develops a sense of ownership over something or someone. Examples of things that people develop jealously for are land, culture, spouse, children, and or beliefs. An extreme example of jealousy is the act of suicide. There are a couple others, but the point is made. And lastly, you're going to look up Nannie Helen Burroughs. Nannie, N-A-N-N-I-E, Helen Burroughs. and she wrote 12 things the Negro must do for himself. And this is in the early 1900s. 1. The Negro must learn to put first things first. The first things are education, development of character traits, and trade and home ownership. 1. The Negro must learn to put first things first. The first things are education, development of character traits, a trade and home ownership. 2. The Negro must stop expecting God and white folk to do for him what he can do for himself. 3. The Negro must keep himself, his children, and his home clean and make the surrounding in which he lives comfortable and attractive. 4. The Negro must learn to dress more appropriately for work and for leisure.
Who is this? Who's writing this?
Nanny Helen Burroughs,
And when did this come out?
1900s.
And this is a book, and you're describing what the book is about?
No, this is just 12 things that she wrote that the Negro needs to do.
And what
To get there.
number were you on there right there?
4.
Okay, so go.
5. The Negro must make his religion an everyday practice and not just a Sunday go-to-meeting emotional affair. 6.
Sorry, read that one more time, sir.
The Negro must make his religion an everyday practice and not just a Sunday go-to-meeting emotional affair. 6. The Negro must highly resolve to wipe out mass ignorance. 7. The Negro must stop charging his failures up to his color and to white people's attitude. 8. This is for Omar. The Negro must overcome his bad job habits. You know some of them Negroes. 9. He must improve his conduct in public places. 10. The Negro must learn how to operate business for people, not for Negro people only. The Negro must learn how to operate business for people, not for Negro people only. 11. The average so-called educated Negro will have to come out of the air. He is too inflated over nothing. He needs an experience similar to the one that Ezekiel had. Ezekiel 3:14 to 19. And he must do what Ezekiel did. 12. The Negro must stop forgetting his friends and always remember. The Negro must stop forgetting his friends and always remember.
What was that read from?
A sister by the name of Nanny Helen Burroughs
It's a book.
that wrote like an article about 12 things the Negro must do for himself. Yeah, Mark. We're pretty much there.
I sort of figured as much. Oh, did you get the text there?
Is there any more questions?
Did you get my text there? Just wondering if you are planning that or not.
Who makes those shirts right there?
So all the ones that we have there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Isn't it? Hey. What am I gonna say?
One of the things with the shirts is just time to make them and
Time to make them.
finance to get shirts and stuff like that. So there's more stock, but that's what we got for now. You know what I mean? What we're working with.
But I think another issue, even if you're talking about it on a much larger scale, it just has to be, you know, I don't know.
It has to be supported.
Yeah, and then you're looking at dropping a chunk of something and getting it out there and whatever.
Because I need some of them too. Like when I wear the one about not black, people asking me for them. They want it. So if we get them team and start to wear that, that might start to teach something, you know.
And I mean that's part of it too. You know what I mean? Another form of, you know, advertising the culture.
Right.
I mean, advertising the culture. You know what I mean? We're gonna be we're not gonna have, the next time we're meeting up is gonna be Drew Ali Day. If there are any classes over the next 2 weeks, it's probably gonna be online. But Drew Ali Day, January 6th.
At where again?
Huh?
Where again?
Flemington Park Community Center, which is 29 St. Denis, Don Mills and Eglinton area, near the Science Center. So you know, we're still getting the word out on that. We have Set and Rabe on deck, myself, Noble Drew Ali Day Awards, and we also got donated a bunch of products, different products and stuff like that for us to raffle off. Some of them include these Bluetooth speakers or whatever, compasses, watches, lapel pins, and all that stuff. Brother Kenta donated some stuff, so we'll be having those available for the raffle.
And to the 13 notes donation to remind.
Yeah. 13 notes to get in. 20 notes, you get yourself a food ticket. And 5 principals going to be doing our catering as usual. And you had a question?
Yeah, 13. When you say 13 notes, it's that.
Yeah, instead of dollars. Yeah.
How would you get the raffles tickets?
All those will be there. We'll have those at on the event on the day. I think it's gonna be $2 or something like that for a ticket or something. And then, you know, opportunity to
shake it up and have some pictures.
You know, same thing that we did last year. We gave away some stuff. There's no other questions. Any other comments or anything like that?
No, so no Friday class coming then.
I'm not sure about Friday. There might be Amari might be doing this Friday thing, but I'm not sure. Look for.
Has he been doing them the last couple of weeks?
I don't know what happened last night.
Yeah.
The night before.
He was doing it the last couple of weeks, but I didn't come to the most recent one. Right? I came to like the last 2, 3 years.
Before that, and that was happening in success of like last. Yeah, today it's December now, so you're saying up until beginning of December, first week in, last week in November.
Not yesterday, Friday. The Friday before.
But the Friday before and the Friday before that. I know for a fact I was there.
Yeah. And then also too, we're working on probably having the temple open for Drew Ali Day as well on the 8th, which is the Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all day.
Yeah, just to be open for the day, just cause you know.
Okay.
That's the day.
I'm throwing this out here now. I've been thinking about trying to get a Spanish teacher in here who would start running Spanish class, because remember the Prophet said one of the languages we needed to have was Spanish.
That's the Latin, Latin.
Well, yes, Latin, right? So I don't know what anyone's interested in that would be. That's a plan of mine. Start like a course thing where it starts from beginner to hopefully conversational Spanish or Latin. And let's get this on, but that's going to cost. But I'm really thinking, what else do I got to be doing right now, right? So just think about it. I'll ask you guys again. I may just open it up. I'm going to work it out, if I can somehow cover the cost of that, and then just have it. But I'm putting that out there, right?
It makes sense.
Well, you know, as I said, I think we all know this. The biggest part of this too is just the amount of effort we put into this.
is what we're
create
gonna
the
get
very
out.
conscious, going to create the very consciousness that we're looking to have change. Like that's the
and
spirit
that's why we
behind
have
it.
this language and politics problem.
Right.
So if we get a Spanish language or a Latin language,
Right.
it would help us even more
Well, remember this too.
to get.
This is some of the spiritual sort of metaphysical stuff that they talk about how language in itself creates certain thought and certain ways of thinking. And that the English language was almost like a bastardized language. It's these other dumbed down language, right? So once your brain starts to incorporate those other languages, you're throwing spells and creating energies in your language now.
And again, that's
Of
also
course,
the,
that's all that.
You see, like we were talking about the Indian whatever.
yeah.
They used to, if they, when they
That's what
speak their language in school, they used to like beat them or
Yeah, right,
punish
right,
them.
right, exactly.
Our brothers are
Exactly.
speaking, really. That's the language, you know this. That's the language that our
Yeah,
brothers,
yeah.
well, at least one of the languages our brothers are speaking.
Yeah.
And we remember, we're supposed to have 2 or 3 of these languages
Yeah.
as a
And
base.
we
So
don't have any.
now we don't have any. And then watch, as you notice, they're breaking that language down. So they've been breaking the code that's teaching us how to move on. We need to get back to that.
Right, and also too, when you're talking about the languages, remember that the whole idea of studying the etymology is to do that same thing, going back to the origin. Because when you check a lot of these English words, it ain't English words, Latin words
That's right. That's right.
that they morphed into. You know, it's indigenous words that they morphed into whatever. It's Arabic words. It's not European language per se like that.
Yeah, it was
So
never like that.
it's
What
part of
happened
science.
was I think in some of the, and you know, you catch tidbits. This is what I remember. I remember them saying that English was the one that was maybe commonly put together that a lot of these other lower people were understanding, right? Because it's almost like that Ebonics, right? So you're talking to people like that's the lowest language that
that everybody could understand.
everyone knows. And then remember, that was the slave who then took that language, and now that language is what's running.
Is running it, yeah.
But now what they've been doing is they've been perverting that language now, even, right? Because remember, it's all spells.
Yeah.
And those are spells, but now you're saying words that don't have the
What
energy
they
of what
mean,
they're supposed to be, calling yourself black, throwing your shit out of whack.
Yeah,
And that's why it was all about the language.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right, I remember.
Even to tie into that,
And that's
they're pushing that in the Caribbean, right? Latin languages is what they're pushing in the curriculum. They're going to push in the curriculum for everybody to.
no, but I gotta say this, it's either whatever those, you know, so you see them as being, well, no, you know the differences, but any of our people that come from those islands that are very much lighter in tone, let's say that look like Puerto Rican or any of those, they're all speaking Spanish, so-called Spanish or Latin, it's all that.
Yeah.
All of that, through it all, and then even other people that, you know, maybe the Mexican, I don't say, or you don't say the Mexican,
Right, yeah,
a lot of them have that Spanish,
Yeah.
the Cubans,
Yeah.
it's all Spanish.
Yep.
There's some Spanish.
All right,
I had an
Morris.
app that always uses to learn Spanish.
So, and here's another thing, heads up, so what we're doing,
Actually,
and this is, watch, this is something for you guys to think about too. So we're having Noble Jewelry Day, and then Tesba is gonna be calling another town hall meeting. And this is what you guys can think about. And one of the things that we're thinking about trying to get together is why don't we come together as the so-called town hall, which is the people that are here representing the nation, and come up with one thing that we wanna see achieved in the next
In the next how much
year.
ever time.
In the next whatever, maybe if it's doing a street walk, or whatever,
Clean up
maybe.
or
going and meeting the mayor,
Yeah.
going
Going to police board.
to
meetings.
police board, going to jails. Let's come up with something, doing work programs, and pick one thing that we, under the town hall, maybe discuss, come to a vote. Like I just went to my so-called union meeting, and it's basically government
Yeah,
on
yeah.
on a work level.
Yeah.
You're up in there, you're making choices for stuff, there's a treasurer, there's a secretary, there's a vice president, there's a whatever, there's all of this stuff, that it's mimicked. I tell you, when you put them together, you realize
Yeah,
it came from,
parliamentary.
it's us.
Yeah.
But so they're running the business, which is the union, which is the collection of people, as the government. And they really are the government to their shit. Whatever's going on at that workplace, that's their stuff.
Yeah.
We have that right here to do that. That's what we're doing at that town hall, but we don't see that concept.
Yeah.
Because it's not being played out in any real form, out
yeah.
there.
But the real form is what the people decide the form is.
And then if
Division
and then if we were
division.
ever to get a neighborhood where all of us live together, and then had our own thing, then that would be the reality.
Yeah, of how that thing is gonna run.
We would be living like that.
Yeah, like if we had a gated community for the Moors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you say meeting for the community, you know, it's based on what the people want to do. Look at what they're doing out there right now.
No, but I'm saying on top of that, think about this in a Monday market. None of the stores there would be selling meat. You'd be having all natural foods.
Right.
That's what happens if you go to Chinatown, right? That's what it is. They've set up shop somewhere else. You go there, you can go get your special herbs and your special whatever to their culture.
Right. Relative to their culture.
We got wraps when we got some hair store. Right? But hair is incredibly important too.
Yeah.
To that stuff.
Very,
Right? Hair is everything.
You gotta look like a horse.
That mane, shiny mane, Brazilian.
You need that mane, the Brazilian mane. Alright, Mars, we'll close out. Islam to everybody
Give
here.
it some thought if you guys have. It's something that you'd like
Islam
to
to the
see
Mars online.
us as the Moorish community start, whatever it may be.
Yeah, whatever it is that we're gonna put our
We went to our
energy
first, remember we did our first outreach thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We went and gave out
Like,
papers.
newspapers and all that, so there's things we can do. But yeah, let's close out. Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. Through his holy prophet. Noble Juali. Islam.
Yeah, sorry, no, I just saw it.
I know.
No, it's all good. You can do what if he wants to do that. It was all good. I just thought he would want to do the right thing.
Marcus Garvey got my right, Drew Ali got my left side. Hook pulling for devil's hides with the valley of death stride. Blade dirty like it doesn't shower, tongue is the sword. Moorish master MC Moore, I Lord. Accent of Tony Martin and Kwame Ture. They poison Steve Coakley, exposing the black boule. Threatening Ivan Van Sertima with deportation. To his own land he's in, so you know some Masons are pulling strings to shut him up for saying Olmecs. Speaking the truth of those existing before Toltecs and Aztecs and Mayan. So-called blacks are the Hawaiian and the American and the free white man. Stop the blood clot crying. Irish nigga fighting a dancing monkey. Disgrace the race, slap a mumble rap chunky. Take your mask off, show you the future, give you nervous sweats. Listen to yourself singing about Molly and Percocets.